All right, good morning, everyone. We're still missing about 15 people. Today, we're going to review chapter 10. And please make sure if you have any question, just to stop me and ask for a question, because I want to make sure you guys are clear and ready for the finals. I like to start with the basics. That's a ranking cycle. Again, this is what we call simple ranking cycle. That's the TS diagram. Point 1 is always saturated liquid line going up. Point 2 isentropically for work of a pump. That is our boiler. And that's our point 4. That's what we call condenser pressure, boiler pressure. This is work of a turbine. This one is work of a pump. This is our Q out. And that's our Q in. Now, the ranking cycle basically consists of two isentropic processes, compression and expansion. As you know, it's always isentropic. And then heat addition and heat rejection as a constant pressure. No matter what we do to this cycle, how many changes we do, how many equipment we're going to add to it, the concept of compression and expansion being isentropic, heat addition and heat rejection being constant pressure remain the same throughout. Now, one thing that few people make mistakes, again, no matter what you do, the last point of basically the cycle is always going to be in a mixture, not on the saturated vapor line, and definitely not on the superheated. So please make sure when you do your TS diagram, the last point always going to be on the mixture region. Now, most of you solve the problem correctly. However, some of you, your basically solution did not match what you had in your TS diagram. For instance, for a reheat cycle, you had the 0.4 in a mixture. However, when you solve the problem, you solve it as a superheater. So that's something that you need to focus and pay attention, that your solution has to match your TS diagram. Your TS diagram has to match the equipment arrangement and, what the problem is saying. So do not change points like, do not do this. This is, a couple of people did that, putting 1, 2, 3, 4. if you do this, this does not match what the problem states. When the problem states at the end of a boiler, we have a temperature of 300 degrees, that's not 0.1. So by doing this, you're not helping yourself, you're confusing yourself, and then you end up with the wrong solutions. So please, under no circumstances, do that. Just follow the diagram that you have in front of you that needs to match your TS diagram, and follow, what the problem is saying. So don't try to be creative, not this way. Try to be creative on finding easier solutions. So that's basically the concept of a simple ranking cycle. Again, make sure your 0.1 is here. That's your source. This is at the end of the boiler. And this is where you come to the mixture at the end of a turbine. Again, the energy values throughout the cycle is delta H across the equipment. For condenser would be H4 minus H1. For work of a pump, it's H2 minus H1, or V1, the volume at the base of your pump, times delta P, the pressure between 0.2 and 1, also give you the work of a pump. For boiler, which is a Q in, is a delta H cost of boiler, H3 minus H2. And of course, work of a turbine is a delta H cost of turbine, which is H3 minus H4. So that is the basics, which of course, you're not going to get this question this time. But if you understand the basics, then you won't have any problem, no matter what we do with it. Do you have any questions on this? Okay. Now, from chapter 10, there are 2 questions and you get only one of them. I'm going to go over both of them, so please pay attention. One possibility is basically reheat and regenerative cycle. This is when we have a reheat, we combine that with open feed water heater. So the diagram looks like this. That's our turbine 1, extracting it from the turbine, coming to the boiler, reheating it, going to the second turbine, then extracting from this turbine, going to open feed water heater, and finally going to condenser, pump 1, pump 2, and connecting it to the boiler. Now, this is our point 1, that's point 2, 3, 4, coming out at point 5. This is our point 6 for reheat, coming back at 0.7. This is our 0.8. And this would be 0.9. Now, if you look at this pretty closely, if you cover this part, you will have open feed water heater. Very simple. If you cover this part, you have a reheat cycle. So it's really not complicated. The only thing is, instead of finding 6 points, now you're finding 9 H values. That's all it is. Now, again, keep in mind, this would be the Y, this would be 1 minus Y, come all the way down here, and then becomes 1 unit, and goes 1 unit, 1 unit, 1 unit, then it will split to Y and 1 minus Y. So now what you need right away to not making any mistakes understand is the summation of all energy going in is equal to summation of all energy going out. Once again, I told you, you cannot say Y is equal to, writing an equation. There is no such a thing as that equation. That is simplifying what you have to do first. And that is, in this case, you have M8, H8 going into the feed water heater plus M2, H2, that is equal to M3, H3. Now recall that M8, the fraction Y, plus M2 is 1 minus Y, and M3 is 1 unit. You need to go through this process. You cannot write Y is equal to H8 minus H2 divided by H3 minus H2. You cannot do that. This is a simplification of this relationship. If you don't show this and write this equation and your answer is correct, this portion of the problem has maybe 5 points or 4 points, you get 0. Even your answer is correct. Because somebody reads that, say, where did you get this? How did you determine that Y is equal to H3 minus H2 divided by, H8 minus H2 divided by H3 minus H2? How did you find this out? You can only find it if you go from here. And here, you have to have that step. To have that step, you have to indicate why this relationship is accurate. So you're telling your audience, your readers, that summation of energy coming in is equal to summation of energy going out. Therefore, that's what you have. And you assume that M8 has a fraction of Y. This is what you did. And therefore, this becomes 1 minus Y, and this is 1 unit. That's how you determine the value of Y. So if you take these 3 steps, then you write this, that's fine. Which you don't have to. You can just plug the number in and find the value of Y. And if you insist on it, that's fine. But you cannot, absolutely not, use this as an equation. And if you did on the second exam, now I didn't deduct too much point, but on the final exam, that's a different story. So please be aware of it and be very careful. So, for a problem like this, the solution for that is very simple, to find all the H values. We go state by state, and again, at state 1, we have P1 and X1 is equal to 0. So this way we can find H1 and V1 value. So that's 1H. At state 2, we have a workable pump 1, which is H2 minus H1, which is equal to V1 times P2 minus P1. Please be careful when you have the value of P2 converted to the kilopascal, so these things will match. If you put 10 megapascal or 2 megapascal, whatever it is, then you will have major issue and major problem with it. So that's how you find the value of H2. Now, let me do the TS diagram. That's the important part. And I'm going to erase this. The TS diagram, again, is very simple. You don't have to memorize this. All you need to do is just follow your equipment diagram. Your point 1 is right here, going to point 2 isentropically. Then you're going to the feed water heater. So that's obvious. This becomes point 3. Then you go to the second pump. That's point 4 isentropically. Now you're going to the boiler. This is your boiler at point 5 coming out. You go through the first turbine. That's point 6. Then you're going back up to the same level, same temperature at point 7. Now you're coming to point 8 and 9 straight down. So that's point 9, point 8 is right here. Now this would be the TS diagram. As you can see, it's very easy to develop without memorizing anything, without looking at the table or under your textbook or anything. You can just follow your diagram and draw the TS diagram. Once you do that, make sure you put all your information there so you don't have to look it up. This is where the y goes, and this is 1 minus y. You already, based on your diagram, have your equation, so you don't have to worry about that. This would be your condenser pressure, your feed water pressure, and your boiler pressure. And finally, this is your reheat pressure. So that's 5 and 6 is one turbine, 7 and 8 is another second turbine, 8 and 9 is the third turbine. So here, S7, 8, and 9, they're all the same. S5 and S6 are the same. S4 and S3 are the same, S2 and S1 are the same. Definition of isentropy. Pressure-wise, condenser pressure is P1 equal to P9. Feed water pressure is P2 equal to P3 equal to P8. Boiler pressure is P4 equal to P5. Finally, the reheat pressure is P6 equal to P7. Again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, the basic concept of the Rankine cycle, all compression on the left side are isentropic. All expansion on the right side are isentropic. Heat rejection, heat addition, they're all at constant pressure. That concept remains the same. So that will help you when you trying to solve the problem. So that's the state 2. Now, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna erase this diagram because now we don't need it. We transfer everything to our TS diagram. Is it okay if I erase that?
That's fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So now we go to state 3. Basically, state 3 is a repetition of state 1. Again, we have P3 and X3 being equal to 0. Once again, we find H3 and V3. So that would be this third value of H. At state 4, which is a repetition of state 2, we have work over pump 2, which is equal to H4 minus H3, and that is equal to V3 times P4 minus P3. Once again, pay attention to value of P4 the same way you pay attention to value of P2. Usually those are in a mega, and if it's in a megapascal, make sure that, excuse me, you convert it to kilopascal, so it will match the value of P3 so we can deduct the correct numbers. Don't put 10 minus 600, then it's gonna go crazy. At state 5, we have P5 equal to whatever value, and then we have a temperature at 0.5. In this case, go to superheated table, and we find the value of H5 and S5. So find H4, and this is H5. Now, 0.6 always going to be in a superheated. Don't bring it down to saturated vapor or bring it down to a mixture. Keep it in a superheated, the value is in superheated. Look at that pressure of a reheat. That pressure of a reheat, if it's greater than 600, which usually 99% of the time it is, therefore 0.6 is in a superheated region. So be very careful on that. So now, at state 6, we have P6, which is equal to same as P5, and also S6 equal to S5. And therefore, once again on superheated table, we find the value of H6. At state 7, we have P7, which is equal to P6, and we have, oh, I'm sorry, P6 is not equal to P5. P6 is equal to P7. If I said that, that's a mistake. And also we have temperature at 0.7. Generally, temperature at 0.7 and 0.5, they're the same. So once again, we go to superheated table. This time we find the value of H7 and S7. Now we come to state 8. Now, we don't know whether state 8 is it going to be a mixture or is going to be superheated. One thing that we know for sure, if the pressure of a feed water heater greater than 600 kilopascal, that point is in superheated. Don't waste your time trying to find the quality at 0.8 and then multiply that and then find out H8 that way. That is the wrong way of doing it. So once you know that that is in the superheated, look at the superheated table, find the value of H8. So from there, assuming that pressure is high enough to put that point where the superheated, so we have P8 and S8 being equal to S7. Once again, superheated table. Now you find H8. At state 9, we know for sure that is a mixture. Again, last point of a cycle always going to be there. So we have P9 and S9 being equal to S7. Now we find the value of SF, S of F of G, HF, H of F of G. Once you find this value from this side, you find X9, which is S9 minus S of F divided by S of F of G. And from this side of it, you find H9 to be H of F plus X9 times H of F of G. And that's how you find your final value. So that is your H9. So now you run around the cycle, you find all values. The next step is to do this. That summation of all energy coming in is equal to summation of all energy going out. Based on your diagram and based on the TS diagram, you write this relationship. And 8 coming in, basically to the feed water heater, that goes to 0.3. Then M2 also going to 0.3. And what comes out is 0.3. That's why I have M8H8, M2H2 is equal to M3H3. You replace that with the value of Y, and that's how you find what the Y is. So you find all 9 H values, then you found the value of Y. Now it depends on what the problem asking you. Let's say if they want you to find the network and the thermal efficiency. So to do that, I'm going to erase this part. So to do that, again, your Q in is equal to the Q of a boiler plus Q of a reheat. And that would be H5 minus H4 plus H7 minus H6. That's your total Q in. Your Q out is H9 minus H1. However, there is a fraction in front of it. So the Q out would be 1 minus Y times H9 minus H1. Of course, your network would be Q in minus Q out. And the thermal efficiency would be the network divided by Q in. Now, if the problem giving you the big W.net, let's say it's 100 megawatt, and they want you to find the mass flow rate, so the mass would be 100,000. Don't forget that. Some people in the second exam, they just put 80 or 150, whatever the value was. You have to convert it to kilojoule per second, which is kilowatt. That's kilojoule per second, divided by this value, whatever it is, which is as a unit of kilojoule per kilogram. The kilojoule will cancel, but you have left kilogram per second. That would be the mass flow rate. If they ask you that question. So again, you need to be very careful when dealing with a megapascal and kilopascal. You need to be very careful when you have a megawatt, whatever the value is, multiplied by 1,000, that will give you the kilowatt or kilojoule per second. So the unit can cancel each other. And what you have left with the final unit, which is kilojoule per second. That's something that you need to be aware of. Is there any question?
Yes, Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
So just so I understand, for this, when it comes to this cycle point, mostly what's going to happen is that 0.8 is the one where we have to figure out based on what we're given, whether it's going to be superheated or a mixture point.
See, 0.6 is for reheat, and that is always superheated.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to 0.8, if the pressure of pressure of a feed water is greater than 600 kilopascal, that point is in a superheated. So you are in superheated region. If that pressure less than 600, you are in a mixture area. That's how you determine.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. So you make sure you have a correct TS diagram, because this usually have 12 points or 15 points. And you don't want to miss 15 points for just one little tiny mistake. Because when you solve your problem, you find that X is greater than 1, so you go to superheated, you do the correct your solutions, but you forgot to correct your TS diagram. Now, the first thing you do, you make an assumption that 0.8 is superheated or 0.8 is a mixture, doesn't matter. Once you realize where that point is, make sure you go back, erase the curve, and correct it if the point has to be in superheated or the point has to be in a mixture. That's a correction you need to do. Don't just leave it out there. Any other question? Okay. Now the next one, the next possibility is when you have two open feed water heaters in one cycle. Again, everything that you see here, we've done it before, so it's nothing new. In this case, again, we have a boiler. So we have feed water, let's say 1. That's feed water 2. That's our condenser. Pump 1. Pump 2. Pump 3 and going up. That's our point 1, point 2, point 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So once again, the first fraction, we call this y. And then the second fraction, we call that z. What we have left is 1 minus y minus z. That comes all the way down here. Then it will get mixed with z, becomes 1 minus y. And then we get mixed with y, becomes 1 unit and 1 unit. So you do that first when you see this. So that makes it easier for you to determine the energy balance equation. So for the first one, we have M8 going in plus M4 going in and comes out at M5 H5. That is the value of y, H8 plus 1 minus y, H4, that is 1 unit times H5. And that's when you find the value of y. For this part, still under the same energy balance equation, now you have N9, H9 going to this box plus M2, H2. What comes out is M3, H3. Now, M9, you call that Z, H9 plus. M2 is 1 minus Y minus Z times H2, and M3 is 1 minus Y. Now you have already found the value of Y from this relationship. The only unknown here would be Z, because you have H9, you have H2, you have H3, and you already have the value of Y. So that's how you find the value of Z from there. Now the TS diagram for this, very simple. Again, these are point 1 going to 2, 1 and 2 first pump, going to feed water heater. That means comes here, point 3, then goes to the second pump. So we go up again to point 4. Point 4, we're going to second feed water heater. This is point 5. And that goes to the third pump, point 6. 5 going to point 6. Now we go to the boiler. That's point 7. That's point 8. This is point 9, and this is point 10. Now, 90% of the time, point 8, 99% of the time, point 8 isn't superheated. The only question is 0.9, because we know 0.10 is the last point of the cycle, so that is in a mixture area. 0.9 could be in a mixture, could be in a superheated. And that depends on the pressure. Now, the same way that I said 99% of the time, 0.8 is superheated, 99% of the time, 0.9 is in a mixture area. However, take a look at the pressure, make sure that you made a correct decision where that 0.9 is located. If that's a diagram, it takes you 2 minutes to do it by following it step by step, and you get 10, 15 points just by doing that. Now, this is a condenser pressure, first feed water heater. And that's the boiler pressure. So put all these pressure values here, put the temperature there. So this way, you don't have to go back and forth and looking at everything. Now, this is where you call Y. This is your Z. And this is 1 minus Y minus Z. So if this is a Y, this would be 1 minus Y coming this direction. That goes to Z, and that's how you figure it out. By writing all the information on your TS diagram, you eliminate any kind of a mistakes. Now, to solve a problem, again, if you really get organized, you can do it very quickly. You don't have to spend too much time on that. Again, my opinion, this is what I do. I just leave it like that. Based on this, that's because I know that I have to go there 3 times. 1, 2, 3. I write all the relationship, then I go find the numbers and plug it in. This way, you save so much time, don't have to go back and forth between the tables. So here at the state 2, it's a workable pump 1, H2 minus H1, or V1 times P2 minus P1. And state 3, you're repeating that. P3 and X3 being equal to 0, you find H3 and V3. And state 4, you have a workable pump 2, which is H4 minus H3, which is the same as V3 times P4 minus P3. State 5, you have P5 and X5 being equal to 0. Again, you find H5 and V5. At state 6, you have work over pump 3, which is H6 minus H5, or V5 times P6 minus P5. Now, if you write all of this, which will take you like 2 minutes to write it, then you go 1 time on the table, you find the value of H1 and V1, H3 and V3, H5 and V5. Once you find these values, then you go to state 2 and 4 and 6, and you find the other 3 H's. So rather than spending too much time going back and forth, very quickly, in less than 5 minutes, you can get 6 of the H values out of 10. That's how you make it simple for yourself. Now, the state 7, you have P7 and T7. From superheated table, you find H7 and S7. And state 8, you have P8 and S8 being equal to S7. Again, a superheated table, you find the value of H8. Again, you know that you have 2 points in superheated. Write these things down first, then go and find H7, S7, and H8 very quickly in one shot looking at the superheated table. So you don't have to go back and forth. Now we come to state 9. We have P9 and S9 being equal to S7. Then you find S of F, S of F of G, H of F, H of F of G. And then X9, of course, is S9 minus S of F divided by S of F of G. From there, you find H9. At state 10, again, you have P10 and S10 being equal to S7. Once again, you find S of F of G, H of F of G. Again, when you come to state 9 and 10, write these things down in one shot, find S of F of G for state 9, then S of F of G for state 10. Similarly, find H of F of G for state 9, then H of F of G for state 10. That's how you manage your time. The entire thing is being prepared and managing your time. If you manage your time better, you can get a better result and less confusion. If you don't, you're going to have a problem. So from here again, you find X10 and ultimately find H10. So now you went through the entire cycle, find all 10 H values. So now that you have all the values, the next step coming down here, finding the value of Y and finding the value of Z. Those are very important. Once you find those values, then is it okay if I erase that? The diagram, the equipment arrangement?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Now your queuing would be very easy. That would be H7 minus H6. Very simple. You have only one Q in, there is no reheat or anything. Your Q out has a fraction of 1 minus Y minus Z in front of it times H10 minus H1. Obviously, the net work would be Q in minus Q out. And the thermal efficiency, those things never change. Net work divided by Q in. Now, what happens if you are asked to find walkover turbines? Now, if that's the case, work of the turbines total would be work of the turbine 1 plus work of the turbine 2 plus work of the turbine 3. Our turbine 1 doesn't have any fraction. So that would be H7 minus H8 plus. From 8 to 9, you have a fraction of 1 minus y. So that would be 1 minus y times H8 minus H9 plus. The last one has a fraction of 1 minus y minus z. So that would be 1 minus y minus z times H9 minus H10. That will give you the total work of a turbine. Now, again, if you are given a big W.net and you're asked to find a mass flow rate, once again, mass flow rate of a steam would be big W.net divided by small w. Make sure you convert this to kilojoule per second, whatever megawatt number it is. Multiply it by 1,000, and that's what you get. Any questions? So the chapter 10 question for the final exam would be one of these two, not both of them, just one. You have one question from chapter 10 and one question from chapter 9 and one question from chapter 11. So one of these two would be on your test.
Professor, please, what is
Right.
the name of this cycle again?
What was it again?
Sorry, what's the name of this cycle?
Oh, name of this cycle is regenerative cycle with 2 open feed water heater.
Thank you.
Not a
And
problem.
sorry,
Not a-
sorry, I have a second question.
Sure.
Sorry, I can't really see the values on the TS diagram. Please, does it say the pressure of the first free water equals to Z or the second one?
Oh, here, oh. This
Yeah.
would be 1, this would be 2.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You don't have to write these. You just put the pressure there.
Okay.
To write pressure of feed water 2 is equal to that. Since there was no numbers, let's say, for instance, let's say this was a 10 kilopascal. This was 400 kilopascal. This is 1.2 megapascal. And this is 15 megapascal. And temperature is 600 degrees Celsius. What I meant, writing those information, though, not writing condenser pressure or feed water number 1, feed water number 2. It doesn't matter which one you call 1 or 2, just look at the pressure based on the diagram, based on the information you have, see what are the pressures. It goes lower, a little bit higher, a little higher again, at the top is very high. So there is no way that this would be 1.2 megapascal, this would be 400 kilopascal. So it goes from low, a little bit higher, higher, higher. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
My pleasure. My job. So what I meant actually was writing whatever number that the problem is giving you there, so you don't have to go back and forth reading the problem, because that's a waste of time. Once you transfer everything here, you no longer need to look at the problem or read the problem. So you have all of that there, and then the problem asks you, A, find network, B, find thermal efficiency, C, find mass flow rate. So if that's the case, I will write find A. Let's see, it's a network. If that's the case, I will write in front of it Q in minus Q out. So I know exactly what I need to do, what I need to find. Then B is the thermal efficiency. Once again, network divided by Q in. And the reason I'm writing network, because you already calculated. Why do you want to write 1 minus Q out over Q in? Because you already have the network. And you already know what the Q in is. Then C, they ask you to find the mass flow rate. So we can write this is big W dot net divided by a small net. And if that value is given, put 150,000 kilowatt or kilojoule per second divided by W net. This way, you know, once you find all the H values and Y values and Z values, you need to find Q in, you need to find Q out, you need to find the network, which you did, and then thermal efficiency. And when you want to find the mass flow rate, you already have everything. All you need to do, plug in this number that you found from there, you're home free. Getting organized, writing these things down are the keys to your success. And trust me, if you follow what I just told you, you're going to minimize the mistakes. And instead of spending 2 hours of battling this, you can solve this problem in 20 minutes. The problems are really, really not hard. The biggest problems that you guys have, number one, you're not prepared. And preparation meaning you have already done your study, you have your textbook in front of you, you tap various sections that you want to know, whatever the sections of the text you need to know. Certain equations, certain TS diagram or PV diagram, whatever it is, you tap those. Tap chapter 9 diesel cycle. Tap chapter 9 actual Brayton cycle. So you already have those. Then you do the same thing with chapter 11. Now, coming to tables. Air table, SI system, air table, English unit. Steam table, saturated liquid table, superheated table, SI system. Same thing with English unit system. Then you go to refrigeration table. Again, you tap refrigeration, saturated liquid, superheated liquid for refrigeration. And then you go and do it for English unit as well. Then you go to chapter 14, which is a psychrometric chart. You tap psychrometric chart SI unit, psychrometric chart English unit. This becomes your tools because now you're prepared. Rather than keep flipping the pages to look for certain tables, you have it at the tip of your finger. You just grab the tap and pull it over. You have the superheated table for steam right in front of you. And then, rather than doing every calculation step by step, just look at it, see on the left side, on a saturated liquid table, you need to find 3 H values and 3 V values. Why not writing this to state 6 and then go back and find H1, V1, H3, V3, H5, V5. Once you find it, then you go to state 2 and 4 and 6, plug the number in to find those H values. And you see how fast that goes. And there is no way that you're going to make any mistakes because everything's all in front of you, everything's all organized. Then you go to state 7 and 8, both on superheated. In this state, you find H7 and S7 and H8 right there, one shot deal. Now you go into state 9 and 10. You need to you know that because those points are in mixture, you need to find S of F of G for 0.9 and 0.10. H of F of G for 0.9 and 0.10. In one shot deal, write these things down before you find out what the X9 and H9 is. Write them down so you have the values, then go and say, okay, X9 is equal to this, and therefore H9 is equal to that. Same thing here. That's how you save time. Eliminating mistakes and eliminating going back and forth constantly. Now, of course, what I'm saying right now is more crazy because when we had in-person classes, I was seeing the student taking the test and I was watching them. They were struggling. Just keep going back and forth and, oh God, oh my God. Why? There is no need for that. The one who took my advice and tapped their textbook, they were very quiet and they were done in an hour and 20 minutes. They were out of there. The one that they were unorganized, the 2 hours of their test was finished. I had to just basically yank the table away from them. I mean, the papers. Because they still were writing, trying to last second, writing some numbers. Because to them, the numbers were very important. No matter how many times I said the numbers are not important. This process that you write down, those are important. You get points for that. I don't care if your number is off here and there. Even if your number is way off target, but you went the correct process getting there, you still get the majority of the credit. You may lose only 1 point or maybe 2 points because you have an outrageous number. You found the thermal efficiency to be 140%. That is outrageous. But if that has a 5 point, I will at least give you 3 points because the rest of the process that you did was correct. You just made an error in calculation. Who cares? It is easy to fix your error in calculations, fix the numbers. But it's extremely hard to fix your process. When you graduate, when you start working, again, as I said before, if you made mistakes on the numbers, your bosses are not going to come in and chew you off because you made a calculation mistakes. But if your process is wrong, you're going to have a deep trouble with your boss because they're going to come down on you very hard. What kind of an engineer are you? Why you took this from there to here instead of doing that? I mean, that's something you definitely don't want to have, don't want to deal with. So don't worry about numbers. Worry about putting all your processes correctly, because at the end of the day, when you become an engineer, you get paid for your engineering thought process. You don't get paid by crunching numbers. I don't know, I probably said it more than 100 times throughout the semester. You probably hate it to hear that over and over and over again. And the reason I'm saying that, because I see your test result. You were so focused on the answers, you didn't care how you got it. And because you thought your number is correct, you're going to get full credit. And when I wrote on your test that please show your work, how did you get these numbers? I know because I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm your teacher, I know how you got it. But that's where you're making a mistake. Don't think that you are turning your papers to me. Think that you're turning it to a party, to someone who is not mechanical engineer, who doesn't understand thermodynamics or power plant design or heat transfer or whatever course we have, in a mechanical engineering taking, or whatever jobs you're applying for. Just consider that person as a CFO, is a finance guy, is a CEO, is a president of a company. I dealt with LAUSD, LA Unified School Districts. And the person that I was working with, or the persons, they were the board member of a LAUSD, 9 of them, and a superintendent. They all had a PhD in education. Now, can you think that if I go there and talk to them about mechanical engineering, they would kick me out? So I had to make everything, all my presentation, all my report, give it to them somehow that they can follow and understand what I've done, where I got all those numbers. So keep that in mind. That at the time, in 1997, that was a $260 million project. That was equal to $1 billion project today. And I was a vice president of a very large company. And when I got that job, everybody was surprised, shocked that how did I pull it off? Dealing with 10 political appointees. I don't know if there's an election or whatever it is, I don't know. But all politicians at the end of the day. So this is what you're going to face in the future, regardless of what you're going to do. Even if you get into the manufacturing, aerospace, automotive engineering, it doesn't matter. You always have to work with people that they don't know anything about mechanical engineering. They don't know anything about the way you work. And if you can communicate with them, you will be out of jobs. Keep that in mind, please. Don't make any assumptions that the third party who's going to read your report or your papers or whatever you have, they understand it the way you do. Because if they do, guess what? They're not going to knock on your door asking you to help them. Because hey, I'm a mechanical engineer, I'll do it myself. Why do I need, Mr. Arthur Wu? He's a great mechanical engineer, but I'm a mechanical engineer too. I don't need him. That's what's going to happen. But the reason I'm going to come in and beg Mr. Arthur Wu to help me, because I'm a total idiot when it comes to mechanical engineering. I studied finance. I don't know anything. Please, Arthur, help me. But if Arthur cannot communicate with me, who have a finance background, then Arthur's not doing me any favor. I have to look for someone else. This is what you need to keep in mind, please. That's for your own good, not just for this course, for your other classes as well. Trust me, if you start practicing this, you're going to have much easier time to go through your school and get your degree, much easier time to find a job. And once you find a job, you have much easier time to show yourself and show your talent and how smart you are, which you all are, and, advance in your career and just move up the ladder. That's the key. That's how you get successful. There's nothing else. Anyway, any other thing that you want to know about Chapter 10? Any other questions or concerns that you might have? Nothing. Okay. Well, that's a review of Chapter 10. Thursday, we're going to review Chapter 11. Again, if you still have any question on Chapter 9 and 10, make sure you ask that question on Thursday, because that's the last day of the class. And I won't see you, hopefully, until next semester. The good news is I got an email that we have an open school and we're going to have in-person classes. That makes it great. Not only for us, teachers, also for you guys, for students. It's much, much better to have an in-person rather than looking at a camera and looking at a TV monitor or your iPhone, whichever the case is. So have a good day, enjoy your lunch, and stay safe, and I will see you on Thursday. Mr. Hernandez, could you stick around for a few minutes?
Of course, Professor.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Professor, I was just wondering what other classes you taught at the school,
This semester?
or next semester, or future semesters, I guess.
Oh, next semester, I really don't know because I'm a part-time faculty. They throw whatever they can throw at me. But generally, the courses that I teach, they're all related to thermal, like heat transfer, thermodynamic 1, thermodynamic 2, which is this course.
Mhm.
And then if it's a, advanced heat transfer for master's, program, aerodynamics, courses, anything related to the fluid flow and thermal, Those are the courses that they give you. But generally, so far, at least one power plant design every semester.
Okay.
So I don't know until they send me an email. Okay, you're teaching this class and this day and that's the schedule and so on and so forth.
Hmm. I did have a question. I was always wondering like what the difference between like the style of like a master's class versus an undergrad class. Like, is it very different or is it just more advanced of the same?
It's a totally different.
Totally different.
It's very different because all of a sudden you see the changes on the behavior of your professors.
Mm.
Now you're an engineer, you're no longer a student, and you're studying, for master's degree. So most of the graduate students, I would say majority of them, are working and coming to school getting masters at the same time.
Oh, okay, got it.
And the number of people in the classes are smaller, somewhere between 15 and 20 maximum. They don't have too many students. And they're more interactive, going on between instructors and students than the regular classes.
Hmm.
Expectation from students are higher, much higher. And the same way, the expectation of the students from the teachers are much higher. They expect you to know more. They're not going to go back and explain anything. They right at the topic and start talking because they expect you to know that.
Hmm.
So it is a different atmosphere. Not that it's hard or bad. It's different. To me, it's much nicer. At least when I was getting my master's degree and PhD, I had a fun time with my teachers. And I didn't have any fun when I was so
Got it.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you for the insight.
No problem. Anybody else have any questions? No. All right.